Anthony Richardson has taken major strides since his benching earlier this season, but is it enough to be the franchise quarterback? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your favorite film nerd over at horseshoehuddle.com, and I'm joined this Monday, as always, by my friend Ben Borus at Colts Film Room. You guys know him. You love him. Your second favorite nerd in the Colts community here. Ben is joining me today because we have a really fun show. We're going to talk all about what we need to see from Anthony Richardson this final month of the season. We're also going to talk about some areas that we still want to see some improvement. But as always, we like to talk with rose-colored glasses, with the fan goggles on to start off these shows. So Ben and I are going to discuss where we've seen the biggest improvement from Anthony Richardson since this benching. So Ben, before we really dive into the nitty-gritty details of it, 3 weeks of Anthony Richardson since coming back from the benching, 2 game-winning drives, 2 fourth-quarter comebacks. For proper reference, I think he's tied with Pat Mahomes this season for game-winning drives this year with 3. I think the Miami game had a game-winning drive in there. So 3 game-winning drives this year, 2 fourth-quarter comebacks in the past 3 weeks. Regardless of the other things with Anthony Richardson, that clutch gene that is just so hard to measure, man, I think we can officially say he's got that because he really plays his best ball in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, I think that's something he's actually had from the beginning, whether it's resulted in a necessarily a win or a loss. I think he's always had that. When you talk about the Jacksonville game, literally his first ever start, I mean, he was carrying the team on his back until he got taken out for Gardner Minshew in the final 2 plays of that game. You talk about the Rams game, didn't necessarily result in a win. He brought them all the way back in that capacity. Week 1 Houston game, if CJ Stroud doesn't make some ridiculous throw on the sidelines to Nico Collins, that's probably a win for Indianapolis. With the way that he played in the back half of those games. And then obviously the Jets and the Patriots, it's just something that we've seen. He plays his best ball when it matters the most. And that's ultimately what's the most important, because when you get into beating Josh Allen, beating Patrick Mahomes, beating Lamar Jackson, it all comes down to, can you make these plays when it matters the most in the most critical points in the game? Because you're not, the chances are that you're going to catch those teams that are that good on an off day and blow them out. It just isn't realistic. So it all comes down to when you make those plays when they matter the most, and he's learned to do that.
Yeah, and for sure. And I think we have seen some major improvements. Even the statistics have not been like major improvements overall, aside from the clutch gene. Again, the clutch gene's always kind of been there, but aside from that, just talking about his play since coming back from the benching, we've seen some decent improvements. 2 areas I think have been really cool improvements are his pressure to sack rate has gone from 16%, which is really solid, to 5.6% in these past 3 games, which is by far and away the best in the NFL. His time to throw is dropping. So from 3 seconds, but prior to the benching, down to 2.8. Ball is getting out a little bit quicker. We like to see that with him. And it's led to better results on the field. 2 interesting things I wanted to bring up to you, though, Ben, here. And so we're going to talk stats here first, and then we'll talk about like just our vibes from watching film. But Richardson early in the season, according to Pro Football Focus, was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league when it came to throwing the ball when kept clean in the pocket. He had 2 touchdowns of 5 interceptions when kept clean. In this 3-game stretch we're seeing right now, he is their top-graded quarterback when kept clean. And then also on non-play action throws. Non-play action throws earlier this season, he was 1 touchdown to 4 interceptions. On non-play action throws these last couple weeks, he has 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. So we're seeing a quarterback who early in the year was struggling in the areas where other quarterbacks always succeed. I mean, quarterbacks are supposed to succeed when you have standard drop back throws and when you're kept clean in the pocket. But that's where Richardson was really struggling earlier this season. Now we're seeing a guy who, if you keep him clean, there's a chance he's going to shred your defense. He's getting the ball out quick. He's getting it out confidently. He's delivering big-time throws, 6 big-time throws on non-play action the last 3 weeks. He only had 7 in his earlier starts this season. So I think we're seeing growth in those 2 major areas where, like, early in the season, he was kind of a play action merchant at times, for lack of a better term. He was feasting on play action, but struggling on non-play action. Now it's kind of the inverse. And honestly, that's almost better, for a quarterback. If you can succeed in natural dropbacks, that's great.
I think that's been the most noticeable improvement since the benching is actually how he performs on all the concepts that are like day one install stuff. The way that he can, whether it's concepts like mesh, I'm thinking to the 1 in 80 Mitchell versus the Jets. Like that's one he sails. A couple speed outs that he's hit just on both stick or some sort of RPO or triple option type thing that they got going on. So like it's these basic standard quick game drop back throws that he's making, and that's what can help you. Like I'm a big proponent of quick game. Now I don't think your offense can be entirely quick game, obviously, but I think it's really nice to get you in a rhythm, set stuff up later in the game, and almost be an extension of your run game with moving the chains and generating efficiency for your quarterback and giving them quick and easy throws. Andy Richardson was struggling with throws like that, so they had to call these vertical shots down the field with guys like Alec Pierce who can make that all work. That's what's going to inevitably make things a lot better when you can start to work some of these quick game stuff with the run game, with the Jonathan Taylor run game, and we can do it all consistently. That's when you start to really open things up.
Yeah, and then going aside from the stats, like we those are the stats right there. He's been better in those areas, and I think it shows in the games. But just talking about like just the film, for guys like us, film nerds, things that we're watching, I think mechanically he's been a lot better these past couple weeks. Not perfect, still a lot of ways to improve when it comes to his mechanics, but I think his base has been a lot better, and he's been better at getting that hip rotation on his throws and really just ripping these throws when they're there, especially, again, when kept clean and when he's on that first read, he is just letting it rip, and it's been a lot more accurate. We are seeing in recent weeks, there've been like a couple of balls that he sailed, but when you compare it to earlier this season where it felt like 1 in every 3 passes was going over someone's head, we've seen maybe 5, 6 passes that he's like truly sailed in these past 3 weeks. That's a massive, massive improvement compared to where he was. I think his ability as a runner has been much better in recent weeks. He had the one, fumble scare against the Lions late in the game when he was doing too much. But besides that, he's been holding on to the ball. He's been effective in the red zone. The Colts' third down offense, like third and short. I mean, guys, early in the season, the Colts' third down offense with Anthony Richardson was by far and away the worst third down offense in the league. It was utterly atrocious. Now, every time they get under third and 5, I'm feeling pretty good.
It's dangerous.
It's
dangerous.
We even saw in this past game, I mean, on the final drive, they converted 3 fourth downs, 4th and shorts, to keep the drive going. They converted third downs on that drive. Prior to the final drive, any third down that was less than 8 yards, they converted in that game. They were converting a lot of their gimme opportunities, which is great because they weren't doing that early in the season. So we are seeing a quarterback who's getting better on third downs, who's being more accurate in general, being more decisive, getting to that first read, and getting the ball out of his hands. Again, the time to throw stuff is dropping. So I am seeing good positive steps in a lot of areas on film. Like, hey, he's recognizing these concepts better. He's working better with his mechanics. He is setting a strong foundation and strong base when he is throwing compared to some of the earlier season stuff when he was really sailing stuff. So yes, it's not a finished product, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment, but I am seeing the strides I expected to see from week 1 of this season. Like, this is what I thought we were going to see from Richardson to start this season. It took a little bit of a while to get here, but we are seeing those strides that we kind of expected.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to add, too, is, because I agree with all that, is like right now we are seeing in these past 3 weeks or whatever it's been, the most diverse quarterback run game in the league right now. Definitely right now. Maybe you could probably compare it to like Greg Roman, Lamar, or like Cam Newton, where like we're at a point where we see
I mean, off the top of my head, zone read escort, QB pin and pull, power read, bash GT, quarterback G lead. Like, you're seeing pretty much any run scheme you can think of. They've added it with Anthony Richardson as the running back, and it's really tough to stop, and it's almost impossible to stop near the goal line. And I think that's where we're starting to see this really come into fruition. I'm really excited, as I think you are too, is what Shane Steichen can potentially add some wrinkles now at getting a chance to self-scout at the bye week. So that's one thing that I've been really impressed with. Now there's some things that they need to clean up in that area as well, but that's something that I've noticed has been a lot of difference in terms of just opening everything up for him to be dynamic as a runner.
Yeah, and they're really leaning into that too, which is great. They're providing that high floor offense where early in the season they were just naturally getting to that high floor offense because of those traits, but now they're leaning into that high floor offense. So as long as the run game can take another step from where it was in this game and go from workable again to even better, then I think this Colts offense can really click in this final month of the season. But enough of the rose-colored glasses, enough of the positivity. We're going to talk about where Anthony Richardson still needs to take some strides. Like, there are still some concerns on his film. We're not going to be super nitpicky here, but we are going to talk about where this young quarterback can go next with his development in our upcoming segment. But first, Locked On Colts fans, if you're like me and your holiday shopping list is, let's just say, far from complete, then I've got the perfect gift for passionate sports fans in your life. Perhaps you heard of the IceShaker. IceShaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB, and will make the ideal gift. Created and used by the Gronkowski brothers, IceShakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with their workout bottles, and this is the gift that you've been looking for. Go to IceShaker.com and use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout to save 25% on your order. Kitchen grade stainless steel bottles that won't absorb odor like plastic bottles do. That is one of the greatest features there of the IceShaker. You also get the patented twist-in agitator that breaks up powders but is silent when you shake it instead of that annoying ball. And it's third-party tested. It will hold ice for up to 30 hours. So if you're like me and you completely forget it in your car for multiple days, don't worry, it could still be cold. That is a great thing right there. Order your team branded bottles today at IceShaker.com and use code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. IceShakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. IceShakers. And Locked On Colts is also sponsored by BetterHelp. Real talk, guys, this is one of the toughest seasons of the year for me. And by season, I don't mean the Colts season, which is always a tough season for me, but I mean just late in the year. I've worked retail for the past 8 years. And man, I got to tell you, December does not get easier. But luckily, I have my wife, I have my dog, I have a lot of things that I can just be all cozy up with at home that really make my sanity drop back to a normal level. But how do you guys like to stay cozy during these winter months? For some, wrapping up in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate or watching a movie with family is the best way to spend the month of December. Therapy is also a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the season changes. I've been real with you guys in the past. I've struggled with anxiety, ADHD, and a lot of other things. Honestly, I can't even think of them all right now. And I've used therapy in the past to help as a crutch just to get me back to where I need to go. And you guys can use that too. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. All right, Locked On Colts everydayers, we are back with Ben Borus at Colts Film, where we're talking Anthony Richardson, and we got all the positives out of the way in the first segment there, Ben. We could have honestly kept going. We could have done a whole show on the positives, but we like to be realist here. We like to be objective in how we talk about Anthony Richardson. And while I'm still impressed with a lot of the strides he's made this season, there are still some areas I'd like to see more improvement from this young quarterback. In particular, look, guys, I love explosive offensive football. I love the vertical passing game more than anybody else. Like, I am fine with 20% of your passes being a vertical passing game. Like, I like to operate on that vertical plane. But Anthony Richardson is still operating at like a 40% rate down the field. He is still going to break records for average depth of target, for intended air yards per attempt. I mean, this is not sustainable quarterback play unless you have the greatest rushing attack in league history, which the Colts don't right now. Like, if you have some dominant running game that can supplant your short game, then all your passes can be vertical shot plays because you have such a great rushing attack. But if you don't have that, you have to have some semblance of a quick passing game. I think the Colts have been very good in recent weeks of giving him short passing concepts where the only thing he can do is throw it short, like the wide receiver screens we've seen in recent weeks, like more RPO coming back in the offense in recent weeks, like some of these mesh concepts. But Anthony Richardson, when in doubt, will look vertically down the field. And it's such an opposite thing that we see from other quarterbacks where it's like, when in doubt, let me get down to my check down, get to my running back, get to my tight end underneath. And we'll get to tight ends, I'm sure, at some point today too. But it's such a weird thought process that, like, when in doubt, let me get as vertical down the field and throw it down that way. I do think eventually he needs to work the check down into his offense because teams are just going to keep sitting 20 yards back on every passing concept, and he's got to eventually reconcile with the fact that the check down is a real option. These guys can run after the catch, Anthony. I promise. Some of them can. Not all of them. Some of them can.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think one particularly comes to mind. It was the pass interference on Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
The Colts love to throw. One of the things I learned from watching this film is the Colts really love to throw into the sun. That's what they were doing a lot. The out and up to Kylan Granson. Like, there were some, like, they really like to attack that sun. That play in particular, if you remember it, they had Tavai carrying Michael Pittman as the 3 vertical up the field, which you like because for those at home, so basically when you off play action, the linebacker is going to turn around in what you would call robot, which means you're going to look to cut the crosser. Michael Pittman's coming across on the field on a crossing concept, and the linebacker is basically running with his eyes turned to the quarterback so he can only cover the width of his shoulders as he's running towards that ball. That being said, he was running pretty fast. And that window closed pretty quickly on Michael Pittman. Now, they got bailed out by the defensive pass interference, but on that play call, Mo Alley-Cox is sitting with nobody 10 yards around him on 2nd and 6 with 11 minutes in the second quarter, I think, or something it was. Right. And it wasn't like some sort of critical situation. And I'm thinking to myself, 1, 2, check down. And I think a lot of the times with Anthony Richardson, and this is a credit to Shane Steichen in a lot of ways, that first read is often open. And when that first read isn't open, it turns into scramble drill, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to. And that's, something that I think will come with time, obviously, learning to play out some of these concepts. Anthony Richardson has the arm where you can't really, he can outthrow the coverage. So a lot of the times he'll be later on throws because he knows he has the arm to make up for it. Like where the timing doesn't necessarily add up. But I agree that taking those kind of easy completions when they're there, just move the chains. It'll eventually open up, but you have to put the defender in some sort of conflict because right now you're seeing guys like quarters defenders like dang near 20 yards off. And it's like eventually people are just going to beg you to take those easy throws.
Yeah, like I don't want you to be like what Drake May was doing this past weekend where it was only the check down, only short. Like, Anthony, be you, buddy. Like, we love it. We love it. Keep ripping the ball down the field. Look, for all these deep shots we complained about, there was like 4 that hit off receivers' hands that should have been big catches. Like, keep doing it, man. But like, let's not force everything. There are sometimes we can hit the check down and get some things going. So I think that's a big thing with him. Something I really want to get your thought process on is we hear the phrase a lot with young quarterbacks, like the game is slowing down for them. The game is slowed down for them. They're at the point where they can kind of see everything that's happening before it happens. And while I think the game is getting a little bit slower for Anthony, I still don't think it's fully slowed down for him. I still think, especially in the pocket, some of the spatial awareness is still not fully there. There are still times where he doesn't recognize how close defenders are, doesn't recognize the space with, defenders close to receivers down the field, and doesn't anticipate maybe as well as you'd like. Not to say that it's not getting there, but I do think the game is not slowed down for him. And I do think there are going to be some rough patches until the game does slow down. What do you think on that, Ben?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I actually really agree with you because I think about the first interception, and obviously the linebacker makes a really, really good play. I'm talking about the tip ball.
Yeah.
But I think you can also watch that play and be like, yes, the linebacker makes a great play. That was an awful decision from Anthony Richardson, which I don't think he necessarily makes all the time in terms of bad decisions. But I'm looking at that. It's an empty concept, and the Patriots are playing cover 3, which you don't typically see to empty because you want to have one. You want to be, as a defense, you want to have +1. So 3-on-2 to 4-on-3. Anthony Richardson is working the boundary side concept, which maybe and I want to address that this is the caveat is that I don't know what they're teaching in the room because I'm not there. But he's working the side that's 3-on-2. And yes, I think it's Tavai again, makes a nice play, like looking like he's going to match AD Mitchell to the flat and then bails to the weak hook. But even then, it's 3-on-2, and it was never really going to be there. So like, even if he had gone to match, you still had that safety that had rotated down. So that's one you would love to work the 3-on-3 side. So I do think that we're at a point now where, like, just because he's made some significant progress in some of the easy things of quarterbacking, this is still a dude who hasn't played a lot of football and he basically doubled his college total, I think, today in the NFL. Is that what's happened? He had 13 starts. This might have been his 13th one in the NFL. So those are things that you clearly learn from. I think that the other thing for me is, which you would think that isn't an issue that keeps popping up, is some of these missed reads on zone reads and some of these option plays where I think one in particular, it's a power read concept, and 33 is the conflict defender, and he's stepping down. And the rules typically, and I don't know what the Colts rules are, but 9 times out of 10, the rule is if he can tackle the back, then you hand it, then you take it yourself. But if he can't tackle the back, then you're handing it off to JT. There was one that he made a miss in the hole, and you would never know that it was a bad decision from Anthony Richardson. But like, those plays will catch up when you get more. I mean, he put him in a blender because he's that athletic, but like, those are the type of things where I think the game will start to slow down as he starts to get more and more reps.
Yeah, I do think those are great call outs there, because those are 2 examples where I'm talking about where it's like, once the game gets a little slower and like these split-second decisions are made correctly for him, I think we're going to see a more productive Anthony Richardson. Some other quick notes too I want to throw out before we get to our final segment, though. You want to see a little bit better, cleaner mechanics. I want to see him just reset his feet a little bit. I think when he eventually gets to the point where he can acknowledge his own weaknesses too, and by that I mean he's a kind of a stiff, explosive thrower. So rolling to his left and not resetting his feet is not something he can really do like an elastic thrower like Pat Mahomes. So the deep throw to Kylan Granson, either set your feet or don't attempt that throw.
Is that the out and up? The out and up you're talking about? Yeah.
It's like, either reset your feet, and again, that comes with the spatial awareness to know that there's no rushers around you. You can reset your feet and then throw it, or just scramble. Like, I just want to see either or, like, either accept the limitation or work around it. I think as he gets older and as he starts to not be a 22-year-old who thinks he can just overcome his limitations, eventually, once you start realizing, okay, this is something I struggle with, let's, work around that, I think he'll be a better quarterback. But
totally.
Overall, again, it's more so just reps, more reps.
Yeah,
more reps.
And I think we can stop calling out and ups into the sun versus Kylan Granson, who didn't do anything to. I mean, he was clamped the entire way. If we're just being honest, it wasn't my favorite call. But I agree with you that, like, that's not necessarily his game. Like, I think a lot of people like to compare him to some of the more dynamic athletes like Lamar, for example, but he's not the same athlete. I got a question that, like, why doesn't he have the same explosive runs as Lamar? They're just different players and different athletes. He's more explosive than Lamar, but Lamar is a lot more slippery and elusive. Yeah. So, and that's the kind of thing that I think that just to put a bow on this segment, I think we're saying is, like, Anthony Richardson has the capacity to bail you out of some really bad looks. I'm more thinking the touchdown to JT. That's a free runner in the A gap. That is not good. I know that they're going quick, but that you do not want that. I would think there's probably 2 or 3 quarterbacks that could probably get out of that sack and make that throw. Anthony Richardson happens to be one of them.
you don't want to live in that world if you don't have to. You want to be able to get into the right looks and make the correct reads and throws and process the play correctly so that when, you're going to have that inevitable, oh no, okay, now I'm a freak athlete that can go make those plays, instead of, hey, we're just going to play unsound football and live in those, hey, we just have this freak athlete that can bail us out of anything.
Yeah, for sure. And coming up, guys, we're going to transition to our final thoughts on Anthony Richardson right now in terms of just where he's at as a quarterback, where he can go as a quarterback, and what these final 4 games mean for him and the Indianapolis Colts. But first, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. FanDuel had the Colts as 2.5-point favorites in this past one with 42.5 over/under. Who would have thought that the 2 of the worst offenses in football would have gone on a tear in this game, and it would have been a 1-point decision in the end? So if you feel confident betting against that next week with the Colts next game, or next 2 weeks, I guess, against the Broncos, make sure you go to FanDuel.com. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And Locked On Colts everydayers, we love college football here. We love college football almost as much as we love the NFL. And I told you guys a story yesterday. I'm going to tell you the story again. One of my first college football experiences, my grandfather took me to see Maryland versus Clemson back in the day. I was so pumped because I was going to go to the locker room after the game and talk to the Maryland players. My grandfather knew a guy who could get us into the locker room. And unfortunately, CJ Spiller happened during the game. CJ Spiller tore them up in that game. The players were not down to meet some little kid who was just pumped to be there in the locker room. So I did not get my dream come true after that game. But because of places like Game Time, you can get to see those college football games even if you can't get into the locker room afterwards to talk to the players. Game Time has a new feature even called the Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks gives you curation made easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater near you. And you guys also get the Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, because life happens and sometimes you can't make it to your favorite outing. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Locked On Colts everydayers, we are back with Ben Borus at Colts Film Room to talk about our, I don't want to say final thoughts on Anthony Richardson, because we still have another month to evaluate this young player. And honestly, Ben, every single game matters when it comes to Anthony Richardson, because it drastically shapes the way that we view him as a quarterback for this Colts team. But I will say this, and I want to actually get your thoughts on this too. I feel like a picture is really starting to form on the type of quarterback that Anthony Richardson is. And kind of, you know, we can get to the point where it's like, okay, he's good at these things. And I think we can kind of officially say he's good at these couple things. And these other things just need to come with time. And if they don't come with time, then he probably won't be the franchise quarterback. So where I'm at right now is you get the 4 elite traits. This is the core 4 elite traits with Anthony Richardson. You get the rushing ability. The rushing ability is fantastic, especially in short yardage and goal line stuff. It is outstanding. You get the sack avoidance. The sack avoidance is arguably the best in football. It truly is on another level, his sack avoidance. You get the explosive play. I know the explosive plays haven't been there recently because guys sometimes forget to catch them, but the explosive plays, you get those with Anthony Richardson. And I think we can say he's got the clutch gene. Like, I feel like we can say it, right? Like, I know that's the least analytical of the 4, but like, he's got the clutch gene. So you have those 4 pillars to build off of. And I think you're going to, like, that's the quarterback that Richardson is right now. It really comes down to if and when the game will slow down for him. Will he find checkdowns? Will he improve a little bit when under duress and under pressure? I think we've seen good steps there too, but not perfect by any means these last couple of weeks. So if he can take those other steps with experience and build on those 4 pillars, I think he can be a darn good quarterback. It's just, can he build the other parts of his game? But he's got those 4 pillars, and those 4 pillars are good enough for the Colts to beat at least bad teams right now with his play.
So here's the way that I totally agree with you, by the way, because I think when you had gone into the season, my whole argument with all the takes surrounding Anthony Richardson was like, I mean, he played like 187 snaps, maybe it was 100 snaps. I don't even know what it was. It wasn't enough to build some sort of like report on who Anthony Richardson is. Like, we didn't know. I think now that we've seen enough of Anthony Richardson, it is a roller coaster. Yes. But I think we're at a point, especially post benching, where I think we can really start to say who this player is. And I think for me, is Anthony Richardson better than the quarterback that you saw yesterday, the week before, the week before, the week before? And I think yes. I think when you look at this you see the improvement. He has not came into the NFL the same player. And that's where I think is the most important thing when we talk about Anthony Richardson's outlook. He gives you some of the highest upside in the entire league. He's the quarterback that the rest of the league doesn't want to see work out, if we're being honest. Because if it does, it's going to be an absolute issue. If he can reach that impossible ceiling that is higher than maybe we've ever seen it. There's a long, long way to get there, though. I think one thing that Anthony Richardson has shown you is that he's the type of guy you want to bet on. He's the type of guy that you want to continue to work with, to continue to help develop and help grow, because you know that, I mean, I don't think people understand that, and maybe they do, that like there were so many other quarterbacks that would have crumbled versus the Jets in that situation, crumbled versus the Patriots. It's so easy to just lay there and lay an egg and fold when adversity hits. And it hasn't been Anthony Richardson. He plays best football in some. I think the best thing about the Pats game, and this is my overall take, is there were a lot of 4th and goals, 4th and seasons. Like, the Colts don't win that game, their season's in jeopardy, and they put it in Anthony Richardson's hand to go make a play. And he did it every time that it mattered. And I think that's when you really boil down to it, as we starting to get into this final month where it's only going to get the pressure is only going to get higher. Anthony Richardson has shown that he can rise to that occasion.
Yeah. And outside of a collapse in this final month of the season, which with the bye week coming, a chance to recalibrate, as long as he doesn't revert to horrible habits that he had earlier this season, I don't see that collapse coming from him. But barring that collapse, I think he's done enough these past 3 games to be the quarterback next year and to be a quarterback we are excited about next season.
I think, well, yeah, I totally agree. I think that last point, I think he probably could have been the worst quarterback in the league and still would have had a chance to start next year. Right. Just from the fact of where they drafted him and what they said going forward. Now, if he had came in post benching and it still didn't look, and it looked even worse, and it didn't look any better, we might be having different conversations. But I think he definitely, it's definitely the type of thing where, like, are they ready to pay him like Jordan Love, Dak Prescott money? No. Is there even a guarantee at this point that he's going to get a second contract with Indianapolis? No. There also doesn't have to be. So I think it's the type of thing where he'll be the quarterback next year for sure. It'll be a big year for him to prove that he can rise to the occasion and win this team football games. Now, there's a lot of things that need to happen around him in the offseason, totally different discussion, but this will be big these next coming months. And I think it's the one thing: playoffs, no playoffs, miss the playoffs. That shouldn't be a reflection on Anthony Richardson, considering some of the brutal losses that he didn't even play on the field for.
Yeah. And my closing thoughts on this episode are going to be, I'm impressed by the mental fortitude that a young man even has in general in this situation where, I mean, Joe Flacco said it after Richardson got benched, like, I wouldn't have taken that very well at 22. And for Richardson to take that benching, again, we could talk about all the off-field or on-field issues that led to that benching, but to take that benching, come right back out, and be in a situation where he had to lead 2 game-winning drives. I mean, one of the games down by 2 scores in the 4th quarter. He had to go down there and will this team to victory twice. Now, in the 3
saving
games,
a lot of people's butts, by the way, because they lose that game. There's a lot of people whose jobs are on the line. I think players and coaches probably.
Yeah. So the mental fortitude to come back and do that, I don't think there's many people who could be like that. So I'm impressed. I'm really impressed by what he's shown the last couple of weeks. There's still another step that he needs to take, I think, by the end of the season, but I am impressed by what he's been doing recently. And hopefully in this final month, we can get another Jets-like performance. Maybe get a game where we beat a team by more than one score just to feel really good. They play 3 teams out of these final 4 that are borderline giving up right now. So hopefully they can get a blowout win in one of these. But I'm excited about Anthony Richardson. I'm excited about what he's showing. And hopefully we can get even more promising things coming after the bye week. But we do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today. Now for your second listen, go find the new Locked On NFL with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, at Zach Hicks 2, and at Colts Film Room, all on Twitter. And also subscribe to us on YouTube where we listen to your podcasts. We love you guys' ratings and reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.